state standards. We create content which lives on the very innovative Kidu platform.
It was interesting you mentioned robotics, because in the UK I think they've just announced a big, I think it was sort of £70 million, if I remember correctly, to help encourage teaching of robotics, understanding of robotics, and sort of our position.
Well, in the US, there is a significant push and have been for a number of years in the policy arena, where the National Science Foundation, things like that, have really been supporting robotics. We're partners with competition companies like FIRST organization for inspiration of science and technology, and that organization, we've been involved with that. What we're seeing that's different today is more of a push from industry to drive robotics into the mainstream of what the kids are trying to deal with. For example, collaborative robotics is now being heavily supported by industry. And they're telling us we don't necessarily have to have a child come to us that fully understands all of these things about CNC, for example, numerical control, robotics. We need to understand the basics, but we mostly need them to understand how to work together, how to be creative, how to problem solve. And that's something that's being promoted by industry, and of course that's something that we at PITSCO and certainly at Kubo have done, is create products that foster collaborative working. For example, Kubo's designed to recommend to people. So there's a lot of money out there. It's coming into that particular area, and then of course there's the major not-for-profits, digital commons, as an example, the Partnership for 21st Century Learning, which I'm a former chairman of.
I think it's a really good relevant question, because I don't think necessarily it's political driven, and what I've seen being out there is a lot of preschool partners that deliver a lot of different preschool material, everything from cardboard to pens to whatever. They really start requesting to build up kind of a digital category also. I don't think it's politically driven. It's basically driven by a request from kindergarten and early elementary that actually want to implement it. And probably if we look across the last 10 years, I think robotic and when we talk about computational thinking started very much in the middle school, probably earlier. I mean, even earlier in high school, down in middle school, and down to elementary, and now it seems to move even further down. From my side, I think what we want to achieve in Kubo is, of course, to make it as natural to learn and about computational thinking, coding, and learning with robots in the same way as it's every time take it for granted that you learn to read and write. And I think it's a kind of a universal language, so you don't necessarily need to read and write actually before you start learning to code. And as Stefan said, just as about that, boys and girls starts to get very selective in third grade, and in that way, maybe lose some of them because it's just too difficult to take.
It's quite interesting from that point of view, because if that introduction of learning about robotics gets younger and younger, whether a certain amount of children won't be in nursery or won't be in elementary, so are you looking to also offer a variance of what you do for directed parents, for example?
I don't think there is a yes and no. Because when I say yes, it's because I don't see a clear split between what takes place in the school and what takes place at home. You probably saw that before, but I don't really see it. We see a lot of demand from parents that would like actually also to work with the same subject as the children work with in school. And that said, but we will not sit on the shelf in a retail market, Toys R Us or whatever. If a parent are looking for the product, they would still need to source and buy it through some of the education suppliers, because we will focus on the education market that's coming, but we will never make a split and say, okay, that's one of the feedback loops we've got. Screenless, just plug and learn, and you're up running.
Quite a lot in the press at the moment about sort of the addictiveness of technology and the Centre for Humane Technology, and there was a Norwegian company that's just come out called Hold. I don't know if you've heard of them. They've just launched, which rewards learners for not being distracted by their phones, by then rewarding them with kind of marketplace of brand offers, which I did wonder if you then have to access that through your phone. But yeah, it's screenless, and that must be it's kind of timely at the moment. It seems sort of the zeitgeist of people's concerns and fears around addictive technologies.
You're exactly right. One of the things that we find is I've spoken to a number of people around, and there's a tenor to the discussion where not only where EdTech is concerned, but where the children are concerned, and the sense of isolation that children have today as a result of their immersion in technology, and we're beginning to see some signs that say technology is good. And by the way, technology is one of those words. I'm an engineer by background, and it's one of those words that, frankly, I'm a bit offended that everybody thinks that only applies to computers, because technology has a very proper understanding. It's the physical manifestation of math and science through an engineering process. It does have a name, and it's not just the computers and the things around us. And what we find is that we're using this word a bit loosely, and we're also creating an environment where children are actually becoming more isolated, and the sense of belonging in the school culture, which in the past was always very present because our interactions were very much face to face. And so how do you then deal with that? How do you create technology at the speed to teach technology at the speed that technology is being created? And then how do you create a sense of belonging and community among the children who are using that technology to better understand the technology of the world? And so one of the things that there's a lot of debate going on, one of the things that we are participating in, as a matter of fact, in our organization, is should in fact there be more of this type of technology that uses the tech that's available but doesn't create an isolated environment? Being screenless, there's not a sense of isolation. This is a physical device you must interact with. And so now you can deal with hard questions like, what are the ethics of how you treat this device? This device, for example, to make it operate, the head comes off. And so the body is the same. You can change the head depending on whether it's coding or letters or numbers or whatever. So now how do we teach a child the proper way to treat this device? Do we just rip the device apart? The ethics of this become very interesting and a very possible way of talking. And especially as adults, we can do a fairly decent job of figuring it out. But for children, the work that Dr. Cynthia Brazil did many years ago on the interactions of children with, I think it's Kismet is the name of the robot. Children at very young ages anthropomorphize the device. And so you have to really think through how the child interacts with the device and what the child will transfer human characteristic to the device. And for children, it's something we have to teach them. It's about their mental models. Fortunately, children are very flexible. They can make and break mental models. They're much more flexible than adults are. And one of the things that we've, around this conference, and that we've talked about is how this allows this opportunity for children and teachers to really have these rich discussions that really will shape a future that these children are going to grow up in. I dare say I will likely never have to deal with the ethics of, can you turn a machine and AI off or not? I likely won't deal with that, although Ray Kurzweil says that by 2045 that machines will become self-aware. Perhaps he's correct. I don't know. I doubt I see that. But these are issues that these children who are growing up today, at least at some level, are going to have to deal with. Think of geriacare, where you've got robots, essentially, technology interacting with elderly people. What are the ethics of that relationship? What are the ethics of collaborating with a robot in an industry environment where the robot is significantly more powerful than the person? So how do you build in these natural safeguards? These are things that we must teach children at a very early age, because frankly they're going to have to solve those questions, and they're not going to solve it by memorizing content. They're going to solve it by learning how to problem solve, how to be creative, how to collaborate, how to communicate.
And Elon Musk isn't going to solve all these questions on his own.
No, and it's not. And Elon Musk is not the only one who is asking these questions.
Yeah.
And he needs, just like kids, he needs help. He needs a team of people to work with. So we want to help create that team of young people who can help him solve it.
And so if people want to connect with you and find out more about your partnership, what you're doing, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
There are several ways. One of them is, of course, to go in, if it's in the US, on Basic Education's webpage, bitsco.com, where they can find more information, or they can actually visit Google Robotics website.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. That's all for this week. As always, we welcome comments, feedback, sponsors, new listeners, iTunes reviews, festival sign-ups and shares. So do feel free to get involved. Organisers. But anyway, I'm straight back into the swing of things here with EdTechX and London EdTech Week. And next week, I'm also going to be part of a podcasting corner at the London Festival of Learning at UCL. So do come over and say hi if you're in town. You can charge your phones at the podcasting corner whilst you also listen to episodes of the EdTech podcast and the Nevertheless podcast. What else this week? Well, the EdTech podcast has joined the very brand new and shiny Google Podcast app for Android. So if you're a Google lover or you use Google apps, go and check us out there. It's also been a very exciting week for our latest episode, which was a special one-off with 3 students, Malika, Idil and Sungna, from 621, a sixth form in Newham, London, who researched, produced and published their podcast as part of their real-world learning programme. So well done to all 3 of you, and I hope you enjoy if you've listened into that episode. I'm hoping very much to see them heading up NPR or Radiolab in the future. So what else can I report back on? Well, the EdTech Podcast Festival. If you haven't got your ticket yet, latest updates include 100 from Finland. We'll be running a workshop for teachers on innovations from around the world. Hackney Learning Trust will be sharing insights on their school improvement plan strategies. And the co-founder of Kahoot is going to be talking about putting learners at the heart of your EdTech design. This week's episode, however, what have we got in store? Well, this week's episode was recorded at the Global Education and Skills World Forum back in the spring and focuses very much on what blockchain means for education. So obviously blockchain could just be a very ethereal buzzword and focusing on the cryptocurrencies part and all of that. But actually we will be looking at what an indelible record could mean for student achievement, CVs, protecting the IP of current education providers, and keeping learner records put together in one place. The homework this week was to look at a case study of blockchain in a particular sector, so I chose education, and so I completely get the immutable record of achievement. The question I was left with was, is there a bigger problem around the value of these different providers of education now? So lots of people providing different, whether it's credits or micro credentials or degrees. You've then got this record of achievement, but are we still stuck with the question of what's the value of each of those different providers?
Yeah, that's a different question. Right? So, is getting a PhD from MIT Media Lab at a par to my son getting an online certificate from Coursera for doing basic coding? I guess not. On the other hand, at the moment for Jacob's stage in his life, getting whatever he got from Coursera helps him get onto another notch in life. It depends on who you are and who you want to communicate that value to. A lot of employers are extremely concerned that graduates are being churned out by the university system, whether it's in the UK, where you now have to pay quite a bit of money for your education, in the States, where it's a complete bloodbath in terms of people getting themselves into $150,000 worth of debt. Or the other side is where you have countries like mine that provide free education. But a lot of people are saying, are those the right kind of skill set that I need when I then go and find a job? And in fact, what you do is you then speak to employers and say, I'm faced with people who might have a bachelor's and a master's degree, but they can't communicate, they can't think critically, they can't think out of the box, they can't operate on their own. So there's a lot of, first of all, other credentials that people should be accumulating online to prove that, well, for instance, in a competitive world, I was just speaking to somebody right now who said that the edge that she got was being able to speak languages, different languages, and that's how she left Canada and went somewhere else. I remember in my younger days when I moved to London in 1985, I managed to wriggle myself into working for multinational companies simply because I could speak languages, and that was my way of traveling. Now, was being able to speak Italian, French, it's for me at that stage in my life, absolutely for the kind of companies I was working for. So my view is that as you're going through life, a lot of these informal credentials, even professional ones, getting your Google AdWords certificate, getting a certificate on the Cisco training, is that as important as a university degree? I would say for certain people in certain contexts, absolutely, if not more. Notarizing those certificates on the blockchain means that those certificates become yours as the learner, and then you can decide which elements of those, including the transcripts, to share it with. I remember when I had to do a PhD late in my life at the University of Hull, I had to write to the Association of Chartered Accountants and ask for transcripts of exams I had done 25 years ago. I had to pay a fee for doing that, which was a pain for me. I paid for the FCCA, and certainly with no relevance to what I was doing in my life, because I had stopped being an accountant ages ago, but simply needed to prove to a university that asked me to join as a PhD student. Okay, so what the blockchain does, we have to look at it as an enabling technology to enable us to do things better than we're doing them right now. But credentials are not going away. Okay, we're still in the 21st century. You still have to prove to someone that what you've earned in your life is of worth to somebody else. But we simply have to move from paper into some other medium.
And if someone's listening in and they think, actually, we want to be the second country to go and do that, what lessons have you learned from getting that actually happening in your country? Because a lot of that will be actually, whether it's within the ministry or whether it's within the providers.
I think we will share our slides, because I have a slide which talked about human networks. To get something like this done, you need to activate those human networks as opposed to the technology. The technology see different models evolving as we go along. I don't think the blockchain is going to go away. I think a lot of people are equating it at the moment with cryptocurrencies and get richer. I'm more interested in what can you do with this technology which gets away with intermediaries when the intermediaries' roles are redundant.
And then who pays for the technology to kick in to work? Is it the learner? Is it the institution? Is it
Okay, the way we've done it in Malta, and it was the only way we really wanted to do it, was block certs is an open system, is an open standard. So it's there. You know, anybody with a couple of PhDs can go around and look block certs, go to GitHub, and just start building applications. So essentially, it's like the same as Linux used to be, or WordPress, if I had to use a more silly analogy, I guess. In our case, it's the government that has decided to go for a pilot, and the pilots in Malta are very strategic. They're anything from the Institute for Tourism Studies to the National Commission for Further and Higher Education that is looking at reconfirming the credentials of people who arrive in Malta like refugees or people with incomplete credentials, and having re-established that somebody's a doctor even if they fell off a boat, or somebody who said, I've missed, I've learned in several countries, but I've got a certificate missing. Once that certificate is reissued in Malta, these new certificates are notarized on the blockchain, so they're never lost again. But again, who's paying for it at the moment? Is the government of Malta is paying for it, so learners don't have to pay a dime. All learners have to do at the moment, in terms of the issuing institutions, so we have like the VET University, the Malta College for Art Sciences and Technologies, National Commission for Further and Higher Education. All school kids at the age of 16, which is the first time that you can leave compulsory education, will have their school leaving certificate notarized on the blockchain. So we're going to have to see if this spreads organically, that learners start seeing value. Until now, it's been remarkable that kids look at it. I mean, most of the time they're looking at a screen anyway and not looking at you in the face. So it's about ease. How quickly can I, download this from Google Play or the App Store, whatever it is. In 5 minutes, I've got my certificate. I can now share it on Facebook. I can, share it with my next employer. So the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating now. Will learners engage quickly enough? Where employers see value in this? Can this become the norm? Will these credentials spread from being just education to becoming health records, birth certificates, death certificates? That's where we are right now.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that you said about Estonia and their closed blockchains. I think, my sort of reading around this as well was looking at whether, you would have a dominant player, so it could be block certs, maybe it would be someone like LinkedIn.
It could be Microsoft, it can be Sony, it can be IBM, it can be Incredible, it can be...
like a national player as well.
Absolutely.
Because there's merit in recognition around learning credentials that are domestic as well as international.
Yeah, I think we're at an interesting phase. I mean, you mentioned the report that we wrote. Whilst all this was happening, I was approached by the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, and what was supposed to be, can you, do a quick study for us, ended up being about 7.5 months. A report I co-wrote with my colleague Anthony Camilleri, who's based in Ljubljana, and what the report recommends is that there is an opportunity for the European Commission to, in a way, look at what's happened with the internet. I happen to be one of these people who was extremely optimistic about the internet when I started dabbling with this many years ago with with one of my teachers, Howard Reingold, who's one of the fathers of the internet. You'll find most of us oldies are terribly disillusioned with what's happened with the internet, okay? But we now have a closed ecosystem which is dominated by Silicon Four. We don't need to name them, we all know who they are. There is an opportunity with the blockchain in terms of disintermediation and in terms of open standards. If entities like the European Commission started advocating, putting its money where its mouth is, and supporting open education, open standards, and making sure that those projects then look at some way that somebody who's done a course, a bit of a course in Malta, then went to Copenhagen, then went to the States, and then had a gap here, that again, saying that yes, we start to, Europe has a fantastic opportunity. We have something called the ECTS system, European Credit Transfer System in Europe. So we can kind of relate to bits and pieces of components of education if we